Well, thank you, Lotte. And thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So as Lotte mentioned, today the presentation that I will give you is based on some content that's in the Strong Cities Network Toolkit that was published recently that aims to provide guidance to local authorities on how to respond to a terror attack. The toolkit came about because we heard from cities that when a terror attack happens, the role of local authorities often remains unclear. So national agencies will take care of the security response, and there is sometimes a fear that local governments overstep their responsibilities and potentially make the situation worse. However, local governments have a better understanding of their local context. They have often the partnerships, the networks in place to engage people on the ground, and they are therefore better placed for some aspects of the response, and not least maintaining unity and social cohesion, which is the theme of this presentation today. Before I dive into that, I just wanted to set the scene more generally. So you can see some headlines here, and to start with, following the Easter bombings in Sri Lanka in 2019, which were claimed by the Islamic State, several attacks took place against Muslim-owned businesses and houses, and there were calls to boycott Muslim-owned shops. In the UK, the police has registered spikes in hate crime following terror attacks, and in France recently, the debate around the place of Islam and French Muslims in French society following the terror attacks in Paris and Nice at the end of last year made the headlines internationally. And I think these examples show how quickly communities perceived to be associated with the perpetrator can become demonized, and that can lead to acts that will erode community cohesion with potential long-term effects. As we all know, terrorism is a tactic that aims to create societal fear and division. And after a terror attack, all actors involved will be operating in a highly emotional environment. And that has a potential for reciprocal radicalization, which is when extremist groups feed each other's narratives, and that can lead to further radicalization, but also for reprisal attacks. There might also be calls for revenge. And bearing in mind these considerations, local authorities need to intervene to de-escalate any rising tensions and maintain unity across their population. So the toolkit focuses on four different aspects that local authorities should really get involved in, and that is community engagement, public communications, psychosocial support, and leadership response. And while maintaining unity and social cohesion is a cross-cutting objective that should really influence all aspects of that response, today I would really like to focus on public communications. So there are three main points here that I wanted to highlight when it comes to communicating following a terror attack and how to make sure that we are de-escalating and uniting rather than furthering tensions. So anyone communicating, and this is not only local authorities, it should really be pretty much anyone who's communicating after a terror attack, should really be aware of an intended glorification. The content of post-attack communications bears the risk of amplifying terrorist messaging, of creating a cult of personality or martyrdom around the perpetrator. For example, many news outlets pointed to the so-called manifesto published by the perpetrator of the Christchurch terrorist attack back in 2019, which is believed to have inspired copycat attacks in the US and Europe. The second point is about leaders who should really keep messaging apolitical. And while it will be important for political leaders in particular to ensure that there is a healthy debate around the potential political ramifications and any legislation needed after a terror attack, the immediate aftermath needs to focus on the victims and on building solidarity across the population. And then finally, the third point is that local leaders need to show a united front and adopt a common and, if possible, ideologically neutral message, which I know is easier said than done. But this will mitigate the risk of ripple effects from the attack, including attempts to avenge victims through violence or harass or commit hate crimes against individuals who may share the perpetrator's background or are perceived to support their cause in any way. Finally, I just wanted to finish with a case study, which has often been cited as being good practice actually in post-attack communications. And that's the case study of Prime Minister Ardern of New Zealand following the Christchurch mosque shootings in 2019. There were 3 points again that are often highlighted. The first one being how Prime Minister Ardern resisted war rhetoric. Her statements following the attack focused on the New Zealand population, on the communities affected, giving almost no platform to the perpetrator himself. And this lies in contrast to other incidents where the official response has been more militaristic or more reactionary, and has included inflammatory statements calling for government retaliation, etc., which really often just furthers those tensions that might already exist. The second point is that she avoided saying the perpetrator's name, which very much kind of touches on the first point before about unintended glorification. So by avoiding to say his name, she really didn't reward him with notoriety, which was probably the primary aim, but at the same time actually also managed to avoid creating an us versus them narrative. And then the final point is around how she united people for a global call to action. She admitted that white nationalism was a growing issue, or is a growing issue in New Zealand. But she encouraged all nations to respond and create an environment where such ideologies cannot flourish. And that's why initiatives like the Christchurch Call emerged. So I will stop here for today in terms of communications. I invite you to visit our website and have a look at the toolkit, which includes a lot of advice similar to this one on the other aspects of the response as well. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Lotte.